Imagine walking into a room and instantly feeling comforted, aroused, energized, or even turned off before a single word is spoken. That's not magic. That's scent. Smell is a silent influencer in the room, the most underrated sense we have. It works fast, it works deep, and it works whether you notice it or not. A single whiff can transport you to a memory you didn't even know you still had. Your grandmother's kitchen, a childhood hug, your first love. Scent doesn't just trigger memory, it is memory with emotion wrapped around it. We live in a world obsessed with what we see and what we hear. We praise vision, we prioritize words, we celebrate the loudest voice in the room. But what if I told you that the most powerful influence in your life might be something invisible, something you can't explain but you feel deeply? Scent. Smell doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock on the door of your logic. It walks right in, uninvited, and sits at the table of your emotions. While you're busy thinking, scent is already feeling for you. It bypasses the filters of intellect and analysis and goes straight to the part of you that remembers the heartbreak, the joy, the grief, the laughter. The moment you inhale a familiar scent, you are no longer in the present. You are in a memory. You're standing in the rain after your first breakup. You're hugging someone you lost. You're home, even if you're thousands of miles away. That's not weakness. That's power. The kind of power that reminds us we're human. The kind that disarms us, makes us honest, and brings us back to the truth we often forget. We are driven by what we feel, not just what we know. So much of our lives are built around trying to control outcomes, but smell doesn't operate on control. It thrives in vulnerability. You don't decide to be moved by a scent, it just happens. It humbles you, and in that humility, there's connection, there's storytelling, there's presence. If we want to live braver lives, if we want to lead, to love, to speak truth, then we have to stop ignoring the quiet forces that shape us. Smell is one of those forces. It teaches us to slow down, to notice, to be in our bodies. It teaches us that influence isn't always loud and presence isn't always seen. Some of the most unforgettable things in life come in the softest forms. Smell isn't small. It's sacred, and it matters more than we think, not because it shouts, but because it whispers to the deepest part of who we are. There's a quiet truth we don't talk about enough. People don't just remember what you did, they remember how you made them feel, and often the feeling they carry isn't tied to your words, your titles, or your achievements. It's tied to your presence, and woven into that presence, whether we realize it or not, is scent. Scent isn't decoration, it's definition. It tells your story long before you open your mouth. It becomes part of your identity, part of the invisible thread people associate with your energy, your comfort, your chaos, your calm. You don't choose that connection consciously. It forms in the spaces in between, the hugs, the closeness, the moments of vulnerability, when defenses are down and truth is felt more than spoken. Think about it. One whiff of a certain perfume and you're in your mother's arms again. The smell of freshly sharpened pencils takes you back to your first day of school. The scent of cologne left on a hoodie becomes the memory of someone who used to be your whole world. These are not random reactions. These are anchors, emotional bookmarks in the story of your life. That's what makes scent so powerful. It holds meaning. And when you move through life unaware of it, you miss a chance to intentionally shape the way you're remembered. Because long after you leave the room, your scent might be what stays behind. It might be what comforts someone, what ignites desire, what sparks nostalgia, or what reminds them of pain. We like to think legacy is built in grand gestures, but more often it's in the small, consistent things, the way you show up, the feeling you leave behind. Your scent becomes a signature, something people associate with safety, confidence, or even chaos. It's not just sensory, it's emotional branding. If you've ever walked into a place and felt at home without knowing why, if you've ever missed someone because you smelled something that reminded you of them, you've already experienced this truth. Scent roots us. It connects us to people, to places, to who we are when we're most unguarded. And that connection, that's where real influence lives. Not in performance, in presence, not in perfection. In the memory of how you made someone feel. Smell becomes a reminder of your humanity. A whisper that says, you were here and you mattered. We often talk about mindset, about motivation, about managing emotions, but rarely do we talk about how much our environment, especially scent, quietly guides our moods and behaviors. We like to believe we're in full control, that every decision we make is rational, intentional, thought out. But what if the truth is gentler, more mysterious? What if a scent, something you can't even see, can shift the entire direction of your day? Smell is one of the fastest ways to access emotion. It doesn't ask for logic. It doesn't require explanation. One inhale, and suddenly you're calm or energized or overwhelmed. One simple scent can lift you up or shut you down. And this isn't weakness. This is awareness. This is the incredible complexity of being human. There's something deeply intimate about this, because while you can put on a brave face, smile when you're breaking, speak with clarity, your nervous system doesn't lie. Your body responds to scent before your brain even makes sense of it. That's why the smell of lavender soothes, citrus invigorates, or vanilla comforts. These aren't just preferences, they are survival tools. Your body recognizes safety, joy, or tension, not through conscious thought, but through instinct. What's beautiful is that we can choose what surrounds us. We can create a space where scent becomes part of our healing, our motivation, our courage. Lighting a candle before writing, dabbing essential oils on your wrist before a presentation, or simply walking past flowers on your morning route. These small acts aren't meaningless. They are signals. They are affirmations to your nervous system saying, you're safe here. You're strong here. You've got this. When we stop treating scent like an afterthought and start honoring it as a tool, a companion, a messenger, we open up a new way of relating to ourselves. We begin to trust our bodies more. We start to notice how environment shapes mindset, how feelings are formed, not just from what we think, but from what we breathe in. Smell doesn't just impact how you feel, it guides how you act. It sets the tone for your choices. And the more you lean into that awareness, the more you can design your life, not just with discipline, but with intention. Because how you feel matters, and what you surround yourself with, even something as subtle as scent, can be the quiet fuel that gets you through the hardest days and helps you savor the best one. We often associate power with volume. Who's the loudest, the boldest, the most seen? But real power, the kind that moves people without demanding attention, often comes in the most subtle forms. Smell is one of those quiet forces. It doesn't shout, it doesn't perform, it simply is. And yet it has the capacity to shift an entire mood, command a presence, and leave a mark long after you've gone. There's something deeply human about understanding that your impact isn't just in what you say, it's in how you exist in a space. Smell is part of that existence. A signature scent isn't just about fragrance, it's about intention. It's a form of silent self-expression, of showing up in a room before you even speak. It becomes part of your unspoken language, the way your presence whispers, I've been here before. I belong here, or I'm grounded, I'm prepared, I'm enough. Athletes don't just train their bodies, they train their minds. They visualize, they breathe, and many of them use scent to anchor into focus. A spritz of something fresh before a game, a calming aroma before stepping on stage. It's not a coincidence, it's ritual. Because scent has the power to center you, to create familiarity in unfamiliar spaces. It becomes a sensory cue for confidence. Even in business, the most emotionally intelligent brands understand this. They design environments not just for aesthetics, but for experience. High-end stores don't just look good, they smell good. Why? Because scent evokes emotion, and emotion drives decisions. You're more likely to buy, to linger, to connect, because something felt right. That something is usually invisible, but incredibly present. This isn't manipulation, this is mindfulness. It's about recognizing that influence doesn't always come from force. It often comes from presence, from the smallest signals that say you're safe, you're seen, you're valued. Smell carries those signals. So if you want to lead, love, or live with more impact, don't ignore the details that seem unimportant. Your scent is one of them. Curate it the way you curate your words, your boundaries, your relationships, because it's not just a fragrance, it's a feeling. One that lingers, that comforts, that captivates, that empowers. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the barely noticeable scent that walks into the room with you and says everything you never had to. There's a kind of influence that doesn't announce itself. It arrives gently, quietly, and yet it changes the energy of the entire room. Smell has that kind of influence. It's not something people can point to, but they feel it. A room that smells fresh suddenly feels alive. A person who carries a warm, comforting scent suddenly feels trustworthy. It's not conscious, it's instinctual. And in a world that often measures power by visibility, it's easy to miss the strength in the invisible. But here's the thing, smell is the unseen extension of your presence. It walks in with you, it stays behind you, it lingers in the memory of someone who didn't even realize they were paying attention. That's not vanity, that's connection. That's depth. That's the part of being human we don't always talk about. The part that says, something about that moment moved me, even if the words are long forgotten. Sometimes you don't need to speak to be remembered. You don't need to be the loudest to be felt. You don't need to dominate to lead. Sometimes just being fully present, intentionally, authentically, creates more impact than performance ever could. Smell is one of those tools, one of those soft powers, one of those silent storytellers that speaks directly to the nervous system and says, you're safe here, you're inspired here, you're home here. We often underestimate the spaces we walk into and how much they shape us. But what if you could shape the space? What if, by simply choosing the scent that represents peace or power or purpose for you, you could shift not just how you feel, but how others feel in your presence? That's not manipulation, that's embodiment. That's choosing to move through life with intention instead of reaction. That's choosing to create calm in chaos, hope in heaviness, warmth in distance. Smell may not speak, but it is heard. It may not be visible, but it is seen. And in moments where words fail, where connection feels hard, where the world feels too loud, your scent might be the gentle invitation that reminds someone they're not alone. It might be the quiet proof that even in silence you showed up and you made a difference. So maybe the next time you walk into a room, you'll remember it's not always the loudest voice that leaves the deepest impression. Sometimes it's the quietest presence. Sometimes it's the scent that lingers long after you've gone. Smell isn't just about fragrance, it's about feeling, it's about memory, it's about energy. It's a reminder that influence doesn't always need to be seen or heard to be felt. You have the power to shape the space around you, not just through your words or actions, but through the way you exist in that space. And that includes the subtle, sacred power of scent. So move with intention, choose with awareness, and remember, even the smallest things, especially the ones we overlook, can carry the greatest weight. Because smell matters more than you think.